I do want to turn back, though, now to some big Canadian news. It was a busy day here in Ottawa. Bill Morneau is out, and Chrystia Freeland is in as Federal Minister of Finance. Today's cabinet shuffle follows weeks of controversy over the We Charity contract, leading up in part to Morneau's resignation last night. It's a small shuffle in size, but one that the Prime Minister hopes will have a big impact on a government unable to shake an ethics controversy while also grappling with a pandemic. The government is also proroguing Parliament, essentially shutting it down until late September, at which time there will be, the Prime Minister says, a speech from the throne, followed by a vote of confidence in the House of Commons. For some more analysis on all this news, we are joined by Paul Wells. He's a senior writer for Maclean's and is in Ottawa. Nigan Sinclair is a columnist at the Winnipeg Free Press. He joins us from that city. And Sherelle Evelyn is managing editor at the Hill Times. She's also here in Ottawa. Hi, everybody. Great to see you.
Bonjour, hello.
Paul, I want to start with you because you had been writing about Bill Morneau's potential, I should say, resignation at the time, now actual resignation. What did you make of what happened last night and what we've heard now from both the former finance minister and the Prime Minister about that resignation?
Well, I thought the news conference that Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland gave with silent encouragement from poor Don LeBlanc, who's the new Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, was interesting. They said interesting things about the recent past and about the near future. About the recent past, there was strong indications of contrition for the way they dragged Bill Morneau for a week through the newspapers, through anonymous leaks against him. They were so over the top in their praise for wonderful Bill Morneau and the great adventure they'd been on together, and Chrystia Freeland even reaching out to Morneau's wife and children. I think they've decided that what they just did was bad and that they shouldn't do that sort of thing. Essentially, publicly dragging a senior minister for private disagreement. They finally figured out, a little too late, that that was bad strategy. About the future, they indicated that they really do want to, as Prime Minister kept saying, build back better. Although I discern differences in what they think that future looks like. Trudeau talked about income security. He talked about good jobs. He talked about healthcare and the long-term care system. Those are traditional social liberal kind of social policies. And Chrystia Freeland emphasized much more the idea of a green recovery, that somehow if we build enough subways, we'll be able to hit our 2030 carbon targets. I thought that there was a persistent difference between them in the amount they talked about the environment, which suggests that question isn't yet settled.
I want to dig into that point in a second, but Nigan, I do want to get your reaction as well to Mr. Morneau's resignation in particular, because if I recall, and I could be wrong, but I think the last time I spoke with you on a panel, which was a number of weeks ago, you were thinking this was the road that the government would eventually go down, that somebody had to resign to try and move past, if possible, the We controversy. Were you surprised at all that it ended up actually happening?
No, I absolutely knew that someone's head had to go on the chopping block. But, the real story here that is sort of glossed over in this issue. Trudeau at the press conference keeps talking about turning the page and moving forward. Really what this government's looking for is a moving back to the incredible public support that they received in the opening days of the pandemic, where all things seemed to be handled. They were getting great reviews. Their approval rating was very high. And this prorogation, this will stop all of the committee work on the We controversy. And not only that, but we know that when Parliament was prorogued in the past, when Stephen Harper did in 2008, for example, extremely divisive, extremely controversial, especially during a pandemic and that a government's going to go home. That's not being talked about because the emphasis is on the resignation and the placing, the replacement, the very small cabinet shuffle. This is exactly, I think, how the government wants to play this out publicly. And we knew that Morneau was going to resign. In fact, we all knew he was going to resign after it came out that he had accepted inappropriate benefits from the We charity. And it was just a matter of how they were going to handle it. And they're handling it fairly well publicly in that we are all talking now about Morneau and not the fact that Parliament is prorogued.
So let's talk about the prorogation, because we have been for the past 4 or so hours touching on it at least. I had an interview with both Minister LeBlanc and members of the opposition. They come at it from very different vantage points. Sherelle, if the strategy of the Liberals are trying to employ here is, as Nigan points out, to attempt to turn attention away from the controversy that they have been embroiled in, do you think what you heard today will aid them in that endeavor?
I think it will aid them in that endeavor in the sense that we won't have the committees, meeting every week to drum up that controversy and that drama. You won't have, Pierre Poilievre, needling at public servants and ministers and asking very pointed questions that they can use for sound bites and social media blasts. So in that sense, yes, they will get away from some of that during this prorogation. But on the other hand, they've also given them another cudgel. They've given the opposition another cudgel, because now they can say, well, there was no need to prorogue Parliament right now. If you wanted to prorogue, you wanted to have that reset, you could have done it on September 21st. And all the work that was being done could still continue. So while we're going to get away from, I guess, the fresh content and material for the opposition to really drive home the we organization and controversy related to that, there's a whole other side now that they're giving them the fuel to say, you're dodging this, you prorogued Parliament just like you said you wouldn't, because Harper did it and Harper bad. And now it's a whole other set of headlines.
Paul, what do you...
All you really need...
Yeah, go ahead, Nigan.
I was just going to say, all you really need to know about this whole situation is when the person who is leaving says it's the right time to leave, and it's very clear it is not the right time to leave. That's all you really need to know about this situation. When Morneau keeps repeating this is the right time, I doubt that August 17th was the time he thought, well, this is the day I need to go and apply to be chair of this international organization.
Paul, how do you think prorogation plays out?
Well, I'm kind of not interested in parsing who was worse on prorogation. It's always a legitimate tool. It's always freighted with political calculation. And there's a very high chance that any government that tries to do it will take on water politically, because it's pretty obvious they're cutting and running because they're a bunch of barnyard chickens. The added bonus is there's a very good chance that this will be tested in the courts. Since the last time there was a prorogation in Parliament, the UK Parliament under Boris Johnson prorogued, was challenged in court, and a new invention, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, decided that the Queen had been misled and the prorogation was of no force and effect. I'm already hearing from constitution geeks who are just desperate to see that UK case tested in a Canadian court, and I suspect that's going to happen.
Sherelle, I'm out of time, unfortunately, but I want to give you the last word. What are you watching for? I mean, there's that discussion, but also the politics of it all, how the next 5 weeks plays out before they come back, before there's a confidence vote. What are you watching for in the next few days and the next few weeks?
Well, I think I'll be watching to see, what are they going to do with this time? I mean, Trudeau said that there's going to be time for the government to really, look ahead and focus on the future, and that's what Canadians want. I think I'll be looking to see if there's any sort of evidence that that's what's being done, aside from maybe, a couple days spent with the cabinet locked up in a boardroom for a retreat. So I think going ahead in the next few weeks, kind of show us the proof here that this break was necessary to move the country forward in the way that they say that they want.
Good point. Many good points tonight. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the discussion as always. Thank you very much to Paul Wells, Nigan Sinclair, and Sherelle Evelyn. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.